The doors of the Grey Hall slammed shut behind me, and I knew this was the day I would lose everything. I am Alira Vantor, last daughter of the Thessaran Dominion, and I was standing in a room full of men who had already decided how I would die. 3 warships from the Kreth Ascendancy sat in orbit above my home. Their commander had sent one message: hand over the princess, or watch the whole system burn. My council did not argue. They did not fight for me. They opened old scrolls and began writing the terms of my surrender like it was just another item on the agenda. I remember the sound of my own heartbeat in that silence. It was louder than any of their voices. 6 years of war had taken almost everything from us. 3 of our colonies were gone. Our fleet was broken into pieces, scattered across 2 systems, unable to help each other. The great alliance that once promised to protect us had sent only one word back when we called for help: regret. Regret does not stop a warship. So when the doors of the Grey Hall opened again, I did not even lift my head. I thought it was another advisor coming to tell me the exact hour of my execution. Instead, a stranger walked in. He wore no crown, no armor of noble metal, nothing that marked him as important. He was human, a species I barely knew anything about. They were new to the wider galaxy, only a couple hundred years past their own homeworld, with no great army, and no ancient treaties tying them to anyone. By every rule my people lived by, he had no reason to be standing in that hall. His name was Nathan Cole, and he said he came representing something called the Sol Compact. The council barely looked up from their papers. One of them, a tired old man named Aldrich, waved a hand and said they had no time for trade talks from a species with no fleet worth mentioning. Nathan did not sit down. He did not smile. He looked straight at me, the only person in that room who had not spoken a single word since I walked in. He said, where he came from, when someone stands between you and the people you love, you do not stop to measure the danger. You simply stand there too. Then he asked for my hand in marriage. The room went completely silent. I actually laughed, a short and broken sound, because I thought it was some strange joke, or worse, some trick, to steal what little power I had left, before the Kreth arrived to take my life. He did not laugh back. He said this was not about love. He said it was law. Under an old rule from his people's history, if the leader of a nation formally proposed marriage to another leader, and that proposal was accepted, his government was bound to defend that person with full military strength. It was written long ago, back when humans had almost nothing except loyalty to each other. He said it was the fastest promise he could make, and I did not have more than a few minutes left to decide. I asked him plainly if he understood what he was offering. I told him his people would be dragged into a war against an enemy that had already crushed 3 of my worlds, for someone they had never met. He said I was not a stranger. I was someone who needed help, and that was reason enough. I said yes before my own council could stop me. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was simply that, for the first time in months, someone had given me a choice instead of a sentence. The council screamed that this changed nothing, that no small foreign fleet could save us now. Aldrich shouted that the humans had no real warships, no experience with an enemy like the Kreth. I remember Nathan's answer. He said his people were not known for winning by numbers. They were known for refusing to walk away. 3 days passed like years. I stood on the highest tower of the palace and watched the sky, waiting for either rescue or the end of everything. Then the stars broke apart with light, and human ships dropped into our system. There were not many of them. I counted barely a tenth of what the Kreth had brought. My heart sank all over again, because I thought Nathan's promise had been nothing but hope wrapped in kindness, and hope had already failed me too many times. But something strange happened in the first hour of that battle. The Kreth fleet fought with perfect formulas. Every move they made was built on decades of pattern and calculation. They had fought 100 different species, and every one of those species had learned, sooner or later, to retreat once the math turned against them. The humans did not know the math, or did not care about it. I watched from the command deck as Nathan's ship, smaller than anything the Kreth flew, pushed straight into the heart of their formation instead of circling at a safe distance. His crew answered every order without hesitation, as if fear had simply been left behind on their homeworld. A young human officer named Grace Milton stood beside me during that hour, sent to help coordinate communication between our 2 fleets. She kept her voice calm even as the numbers on her screen turned worse and worse. I asked her if she was afraid. She said fear was allowed, but giving up was not. I began to understand, in that moment, that this was not about how many ships they had. It was about something none of my scholars had ever measured before, some stubborn refusal buried deep in every human heart. The Kreth commander, used to enemies who broke the instant the odds turned against them, began to make mistakes. His ships hesitated at moments when hesitation cost him dearly. He had never faced anyone who simply would not calculate whether the fight was worth having. Nathan's voice came over the open channel, calm and steady, telling his crew that today was not the day they would let fear choose the outcome for them. I do not know exactly how the next few hours unfolded in detail, only that when the smoke of battle finally cleared, the Kreth ships were turning away instead of advancing. They pulled back from our system, bruised badly enough, and unsettled enough by an enemy who refused to behave the way every other species had, that they chose to search for easier targets elsewhere. When it was over, I stood on the tower again, and this time the sky was quiet in a different way. Not the silence of waiting for death, but the silence after surviving something impossible. Nathan came to find me there. His uniform was worn and marked from the hours of fighting, but he was alive, and so was I. And for the first time in 6 years, I did not feel like a piece of furniture being moved around a table of other people's decisions. I asked him why his people had really come. Not the law, not the old promise written centuries ago, but the real reason. He said that promises only mean something if someone is willing to keep them, even when it costs everything. He said his people had learned that lesson the hard way, long before they ever left their own solar system, and they were not about to forget it now just because the person needing help happened to live on a different world. I told him I did not know if what stood between us was truly love, or simply gratitude too large to name properly yet. He said that was fine. He said some things do not need a name right away, they only need time. We are still rebuilding what the war took from us. Grace Milton stayed behind to help train our people in coordination methods that saved so many lives during the battle, and she has become something like a friend to me in the months since. Nathan and I are, for now, simply two people learning what it means to trust someone the rest of the galaxy overlooked. I do not know yet if this strange arrangement, born out of an old law and a moment of desperation, will grow into something real between us. But I know this much for certain. I had run out of hope. My own council had already written the ending to my story, and it ended with my death. A stranger from a small, young, technologically modest species looked at that ending and refused to accept it. He rewrote it with nothing but his word and his willingness to risk everything for someone he owed nothing to. I have since learned this is not rare among his people. It is simply who they are, and I suspect the rest of the galaxy is only beginning to understand what that truly means.